through mountains and valleys. His joy is refreshing, restores my soul. Mercy and goodness give me assurance that I'll see His glory face to face. Lift your voice and say, hallelujah, hallelujah. I am not alone. No, no, no. Somebody lift your voice, say, He's my comfort, He's my comfort, always holds me close. Oh, hallelujah, I am not alone. No, no. He's my comfort, always holds me close. Your spirit lives within me, so I will walk in your peace. Your spirit lives within me, my victory, my victory. Your spirit lives within me, so I will walk in your peace. Your spirit lives within me, my victory, my victory. Your spirit lives within me, so I will walk in your peace. Your spirit lives within me, my victory, my victory. Your spirit lives within me, so I will walk in your peace. Your spirit lives within me, my victory, my victory, my victory, my victory, my victory, my victory. I win because you're my victory, my victory. Hallelujah. Is it your victory today? You are not alone. No, 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 no. Hallelujah. I am not alone. He's my comfort. Always, always holds me close. Hallelujah, I am
copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. No copyright infringement intended. All rights belong to their respective owners.
This is War Cry. We're on the wall crying out for our children, our communities, our schools, our churches, our families. This is War Cry. Welcome to our reality. Gun violence, Chicago, Philly, Detroit, New York, Atlanta, just to name a few. Our black children are dying day by day. This is War Cry. Police brutality. Hands up! Don't move. I can't breathe. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag All Lives Matter to Christ. This is War Cry. Drugs, rape, mass shootings, school violence. This is War Cry. Galvanizing people to pray for our children and to take action. Let's march on Washington. We want prayer back in you. This is War Cry. Cameras, memorials in every corner in our neighborhood. Who died this weekend? Oh no, not Miss Martha's grandson. This is War Cry. He was only 16. His brother died last year. He was only 13. This is War Cry. We the people. We're the elected officials. This is War Cry. We need the church. Where's the church? Only on Sundays. Get to the streets, church. We need you out there. This is War Cry. Girl, be gone. Boy, be gone. Mothers crying. Fathers being locked up. Welcome to our reality. Identity crisis. This is War Cry. Oh, they're trying to remove our history off the textbook. Oh, critical race theory? It makes them feel bad. It's our reality. Fake reality shows. We want the real truth. Stay woke. This is War Cry. HBCUs under attack. This is War Cry. Equal pay for what we do. We want a reparation. This is War Cry. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Wait a minute. Is that somebody else they're burying that looks like us? Only 12. This is War Cry. Let us come together and pray for our young people, pray for our communities, pray for our schools, pray for our churches, pray that the government gives us what we need, a fair opportunity. This is War Cry, home of the land, home of the brave, land of the free. Who's free? Our men are locked up. This is War Cry. Hashtag mothers against gang violence. Hashtag fathers who love their sons. Hashtag what would Jesus do? This is War Cry.
I know who goes before me. I know who stays behind. The God of Israel found me. Is always by my side.
This is War Cry.
Yes.
We're on the wall
War
crying
Cry.
out for our children.
This is War Cry, and we are excited about today and about our person we're going to interview today. This is War Cry for our children, War Cry for communities, War Cry for our schools, War Cry for our churches, War Cry to galvanize us back together again for action. And how are we going to do that? By engaging in productive communication. See, for a long time, we have not been engaging in productive communication. We haven't been engaging in communication that's going to inform and make you move to another dimension. We've just been talking. And, I want to just say this. This is War Cry. And we're not politically correct, but we're Christ correct. And we are engaging in things to make your life better. And I want to make you mad. I really do. I want to make you so mad that you actually change. You actually go and do something. You actually start helping a young person that's not in your family. You actually start buying school supplies and giving them to the schools. You actually start helping the homeless. You actually start signing petitions about the injustices that's being or doing to our people that's being oppressed. See, it's not about you. I know you think it's about you. Oh, well, that doesn't appear to me. My kids are well, I'm retired, my house is paid for. But how many of you know that what happened on the subway in New York City last week could affect us all? Here we have a man who they say had been arrested. They allege, they make up stuff, I don't know, but he was acting out disruptive conduct. And guess what? We had someone who was trying to be a good Samaritan. I don't know. That's what he alleges. And guess what? The man actually winded up dead. He didn't hit anybody. Maybe he was acting a little belligerent. But did he deserve to die? This is war cry. This is war cry. If we don't stop this, we're going to have some vigilantes that's going around here to take things in their own hands. And they just won't be the Proud Boys. This is war cry. This is war cry. Another mass shooting in Texas. Oh, this is so common now. I'm going to say it. And NRA, I know you're going to ban my show, but you don't listen to my show. And if you do, you're spying. We want the AR-15s to be stopped producing. Won't you stop producing them? That's what we want. And if you want to look this up for all our listeners as you coming in, they've made a junior AR-15 for children. Don't take my word up. Why don't you trust Google if you don't take my word? Trust Google and find out what Google is saying about what they're doing. This is war cry. And it's time for the church. It's time for the community. It's time for people to open up their mouths and not be silent. This is war cry. We're praying for your children every day. I'm praying for your children. If you want some of your children's name on the list for me to pray for, you can hit us at warcry.children@gmail.com. warcry.children@gmail.com. Or you can go to my website, let me know. We want to stand for action. Also, I have a t-shirt designed. It says, I am praying for our children. Put prayer back in school. You can purchase one of these t-shirts anytime you make a donation or a purchase. It goes directly back into the community, back into scholarship funds, back into building up our young people. It says, I am praying for our children. Guess what? Put prayer back into school. Some of you guys are afraid to open up your mouth. You can do a silent affirmation and stand on the corner of a school. Stand in front of the school. Don't go on the school property. You might get arrested. But stand on the side. Let the enemy of the airway know that you're not afraid to stand up for our children. This is War Cry. And we have an exciting show. Oh my goodness. We have a very exciting show. Bring my host on, engineers. Let me see my host for today. Oh my God. Am I not excited today? Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited. When I read this young man's biography, I was like, oh no, he's got to come on War Cry. See, because we need brothers like this who are not afraid, unapologetic brothers. So all you listeners, I need you to clean your ears out because you're going to hear some things. This is War Cry, not politically correct. If you want to go to a politically correct station, I think you should go to the old station because we're going to tell you the truth here. Not just our truth, but the truth. See, white people have been hiding our truth and been giving you their truth. Now it's time for the truth to come out. And guess what? You should be sharing this, making this the #1 podcast in the world. Why aren't you? You've been silenced and you will let people silence you. That's the bad thing about it. I wouldn't let nobody take my voice. I would not do that. As you can see, got a loud voice. This is War Cry. And I want to let my guest, I'm excited, introduce himself to you right now. So get your notebooks, get some pencil and paper, because we're going to get, what do they say down south? Educated. We're going to get educated because guess what? We've been educated, but we ain't been educated, blackicated. Oh, I don't even know if that's a word, but I just made it up. So you can say that belongs to me. We're going to get black. Okay. All right, my brother. All right. Tell us something about yourself and who you are and let our listeners hear us.
It is such an honor to be on this show today, and listening to the intro was quite revealing, educational in and of itself. And for you to be the warrior woman that you are, I want to say thank God. This is what the Lord asks of you, only this: to act justly, to love tenderly, and walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:8. It's so important for us to know, if peace is going to be available, we have to be the ones to bring it into existence, right? Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be children of God. And you are certainly that. I pray that I can walk with you in the work that you're doing. I am the son of Thomas Oliver, who made his transition many, many years ago, and the son of Sylvia Oliver. And they call me Dr. O, or Baba Onaje, Dr. Onaje Maweed, and it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Dr. O, for accepting the invitation. Oh my goodness, I am so excited. You have so many wonderful things that you need to share with your people. And we need to get the message out, period, so that we can understand better how to take care of ourselves, better about the issues that we're facing. I mean, whoever controls communication controls the narratives. So what we're doing is we're going to control the communication so we can control the narrative. And the narrative is very simple. We want our people to be educated and to know what's going on. Yes, we got black on black crime. We see it every day. We see it in our neighborhoods, in our communities. Some of us moved away so we wouldn't have to deal with it. The haves versus the have not. The majority of our rap singers or drill singers or of sports idols came from these very streets that they don't want to come back to, or they want to just service with a little something. But we need them to come in and let our black boys and black girls know that guess what? They can succeed. But they leave them, they turn their back. So that's not war cry. See, this is not a fake reality show. This is not the Wives of Huntsville. This is not going on trying to make our girls think that the only way they can get accepted is a weave down to their butt, is to have their body augmented, is to have tattoos on them, or to be submissive to a man, to go on the show and fight like a savage. No, no, this is not that. This is the truth for people of the truth. So we thank you today. We thank you today for being on the show. Because, brother, I know you have some truth and we want you to tell us. Now, how did you get the name Dr. O? How did you come into this the world of health, the world of education among our people? How did you come and become a warrior like you are? You are one of our warriors. Tell us a little bit about your work.
It has to be my mother. Sylvia Oliver is a woman who she was courageous enough to speak her own mind. She was a barmaid when I was growing up. And to give you some idea of the tenacity of this woman, for those of you who have ever been in a bar, go back maybe about 30, 40 years and think about walking into the bar. And what you will find is that all the women, or most of the women, would have to submit to a European standard of beauty. They would have to straighten their hair. They would have to put on eyelashes for the most part. And that's still happening today. But back then, it was just that much more. The point I'm making is that she chose to wear her hair the way that it grows out of her head. And if you think about it, in the Black community, we say things. So one woman may say to another woman, "Are you going natural?" But look at the question. Are you going natural? This is how twisted we've become. So the war that we're talking about is the war to be the person that God intended you to be.
Now,
With
let me
this,
just step in for a moment. Let me step in. That's a critical question, my brother, Dr. O, because there's a stigma with our hair. And we didn't plan to even talk about this. There's a stigma with black hair. And there are some identifications that we don't want to identify with our black hair. Because for a long time, when we went natural, our white brothers and sisters would look at that as a sign of rebellion because they were so used to us, and I'm gonna raise my hand because I got a perm. I'm gonna raise my hand. They were so used to us conforming to their standard and looking like them, even as much as now we got these long wigs to look at them. And when we see our brothers and sisters, who a lot of them have went natural now, we say, "Oh my God, uh, how did you get your hair like that? Is it twist? Is it that?" Because we've been so colonized in our mind and our perception that natural hair is not beautiful. When in fact, that was the intent of the maker, of our God, for us not to put all this stuff. And now they're finding out that perms now are causing cancer. Back at you, my brother O, Dr. O.
yeah, they're so true. So my mother was, courageous enough to wear her hair the way it grows out of her head, natural, and have so much criticism, have so much pushback. Oh, give me that, give me some of that hair. I can make some. I don't have to buy no Brillo. I can just use your hair. I mean, just one insult after another after another. So you asked me, how did I become who I am? I'm saying this because of my mother. About 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, I was honored in New York City as a community healer through the Areri Foundation, and they started something called Postpartum Awareness Week this week, and they asked me for a quote. They said, "If you give me a quote," and the quote I gave was for my granddaughter. She said to me, when on her 5th year, she was 5 years old, on her birthday, she said, "Barbara, I love you a million years." And now, she crushed, she got me. The girl conquered me, right? And then then Shawnee Benton asked me the question, "Well, why do you think, she would say that to you?" I said, "Oh, that's an easy answer. In the audience is my mother and my sister, because who they are and who they've been to me in my life, they have helped me become the person I am." So I would say that all praises are due to Creator, all mistakes are mine, and all the things that I've done in this world that can be attributed to being something positive goes to my mother and goes to my sister, Jean Oliver Taylor.
Oh, well, maybe the next time we'll bring your mother and sister on for an interview for raising such an outstanding son, period. Because we want to honor. See, that's what War Cry is about. We do hashtag say her name. See, behind every great man and woman of God, there is a hashtag, say her name. And a lot of those women names won't get said because to the media, they're not important. But to War Cry, every woman is important. Do you know the difficulties it is to raise a Black son in today's world? Many Black women attempted it, and some of them did a great job, but a lot of them sons ended up either in the grave or incarcerated. And those that escaped, we definitely want to celebrate because it's a method behind that. Back at you, Dr. O, what you think about that?
That is such an important, I'm just so, praise God that that I have the mother and sister that I have, the families that I have, and I've been able to experience something, a life that most people can only dream about. And I say that because for 25 years, I've worked in nonprofits, particularly under the leadership of 2 Black men. The first one was Abu Karim Shabazz from 1986 to 2000 at a place in Harlem called Faye's Piggyback. And that was like really the child of Operation Helping Hand Incorporated. So I worked for Abu Karim Shabazz from 1986 to 2000, and then from 2004 to 2015, for the most part, I worked under Leonard Hebert, two progressive Black men who were doing phenomenal work in the community. So when I say I've lived a life that most Black men can't even dream about, how many Black men even work for another Black man? Number one. How many work for another? For two, how many have worked for progressive Black men for a quarter of a century, 25 years? I have. So I'm kind of enigma in that sense, because there aren't that many opportunities for young Black men, as I was then, to work for another progressive Black man. You know, you talked about education, and usually my hero is Malcolm X, right? Usually when they use his quote, they say education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. That is true. However, unintentionally, what people do is they tricate the message. They limit the message, because the first part of that quote is education is an important element in the struggle for human rights. It is the means to help our children and thereby increase self-respect. Education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it. So you really can't talk about the last part of that sentence without talking about, you know, the parts that's up front. And much of our problems stem from the fact that we don't control our education. So let me go back. People thought that education was neutral. It was just something that you do, and everybody would get it, and it's a wonderful thing. That was the general understanding of education. But in 1968, we found that not to be true. What am I referring to? I'm referring to the Ocean Hill-Brownsville struggle in Brooklyn, New York, where Ford Foundation said, "Okay, let the community run its school," and it was Black men, women who ran the school, and they decided to change the curriculum. And there actually was the Jewish teachers who said, "No, we don't want you to do that." Now, we don't go into their community and tell them what kind of education they should have for their children, yet they want to come in our community and control our education. So,
And let me just come in and let me just say something.
finish.
Let me say something. Then you're going to finish. Okay, let me just say this. Let me give you one reason: because they control the Department of Education. Go back at you.
So, long story short, they called in the National Guard. They called in the National Guard. They called in the National Guard to remove the people who chose to think for themselves, who chose to have a curriculum that was connected to the people that they were serving, the students. They chose to create an education that would create self-identity, self-respect, and self-determination. And as a result of that, they were kicked out, right? And from that, a movement came into being called Uhuru Sasa. Uhuru Sasa is a key Swahili word that means freedom now. And they created a school, Uhuru Sasa, Freedom Now. They created a cultural organization called the East, right? So when I went to Brooklyn for engineering, I left Brooklyn without my engineering degree, but I left with a PhD from the East in terms of Black nationalism. So you've heard about Kwanzaa, right?
Yes,
Kwanzaa was created
yes.
by Dr. Malana Karenga. It talks about the 7 principles, right? Unity is number one, and faith is the next one. So when we take on values that are consistent with our culture and consistent with our past, we can begin to heal ourselves. Only when we start to move out of the European mindset and value system into an African-centered value system will we start to become ourselves and think in a natural way that will be able to heal ourselves and to build for ourselves. Growing up, we were told, go to school, get a good job, and then work for the government. That was that was the formula. That was but what they were saying to you is just be a modern day slave, where you would work for someone else and not have your own businesses, not have your own organization, so forth and so on. So in spite of all the work that we've tried to do that, anytime you see us actually doing that for ourselves, we were attacked. We were attacked.
Absolutely.
We can talk
Now,
about Rosewood.
let me step in for just 1 minute. Um, you are laying so many golden nuggets on us that is blowing our minds. So I tell all my listeners, you better tell someone else to tune in because you're not going to get this type of information anywhere. But let's just talk a little bit about some things. First of all, when we speak about the education of Black people, we always, for a time, especially in the late 70s and early 80s, we tried to always push our children into going to college. But not all our children are college material. And one of the reasons that we allowed this to happen is because early in the 70s, late 60s, we were going to vocational schools and we was learning how to be plumbers, electricians, brick masons, and welders, which gave us an avenue of entrepreneurship. So when they discovered that now they wanted to keep us out of schools, they wanted to downgrade the Black colleges and make us think that we went there. It was equal to a 12th grade education. They wanted to keep us out of the schools, the white schools with the affirmative action. So a lot of us migrated to trades. Now they looked at us and say, my God, he's an electrician. He's opened up a business. Oh my God, he's a welder. So they seen the entrepreneurship there. So you know what they did? They did begin to close vocational schools down. Close them down, close them down, close them down. So now you had a gap between children who didn't want to go to college and children who needed to work with their hands. See, Black children, Black boys are very creative. They're very hyper, they're very creative, and they're very they explore things. So they pushed a lot of them to the streets really based on economical systems that they couldn't even control. So you're right when you said, I want to let you comment on everything. And what they did was they developed white curriculums. The white teachers came into our neighborhoods that lived in the suburbs. They had never interfaced with us, that didn't know, who was used to eating a cup and a salsa. We're used to drinking out of a plastic cup. We drink our coffee out of a cup, a mug. We don't have a saucer and a cup together. So they didn't know our terminology. We didn't know theirs. And guess what? They flunked us. They said we was mentally disturbed. They gave the mamas monies to put their children in these ADH classes. And guess what? They stopped the progress. I'm going to go back to you, brother. I had to get that out, Dr. O. I had to get it out.
Sister, you are so on top of it. Yeah, the thing which is it's hard for us as human beings to accept the reality in which we live in. It's a very hard thing to do, to say, how can people be so mean? How can people be so intentional about hurting us, about killing us? The word we use to talk about that level of harm is called genocide. The United Nations I think it was 48 created the Declaration on Genocide, the Convention on Genocide, right? The killing of the children, creating conditions that'll bring about the killing of the children, the taking of the children. It was Patterson in 49 who, and Du Bois and Paul Robeson, who gave a petition to the United Nations declaring genocide that we had experienced. And even before that, Garvey had said the same thing. So it's hard for our people to accept the fact that the conditions we're living under is so grave that it's, in fact, it qualifies to be called genocide. It was in 2001. And I was a delegate at the United Nations World Conference Against Racism, which was the third conference. People think it was the first. It was actually the third. And there it was declared that slavery was a crime against humanity. Now, the significance of that declaration is that, one, when you say there's a crime, well, it means there must be a criminal.
Yes.
It must be a victim. Well, it must be a harm. Well, then what's the remedy? The remedy is reparations. So if we are serious about our children, and that means our future, if we're serious about our children and our future, then we must have a big enough concept and a big enough approach to the problem that it can actually get solved. Because you can't solve a big problem with micro dot solutions.
Absolutely.
The solution has to
Absolutely.
equal the magnitude of the problem. In fact, it was Einstein who said that you can't solve a problem at the level of consciousness that it was created. So until we as a people affirm our right to be healed, our right to be repaired, our right to have and control our own institutions, until we as a people assume the responsibility for these things that would secure our health, our welfare, our peace, our happiness, until we decide that we have to run and create our own institutions for these things, then they won't happen until we decide to do that. So,
I just want to come in for a minute. I totally and humbly agree with you, but I just got to say, there are so many have-nots and haves in our Black culture. We don't join together as a people. We think that the American Blacks are different than the Caribbean Blacks. We
mm,
think that the Blacks that live in Brazil is different than ours. Because we speak a different language, we
mm,
can't understand that our color and our problems are the same. I was in a meeting this weekend with a pastor who happened to be Latino, and he said, who's brown, dark as I am. He said when he sit there, as long as his mouth was closed, this is a Black problem, this is a white problem. He said, but when he opened up his mouth and they seen that his dialogue was a little different. Now this person said, well, this is a Black problem and a brown problem and a white problem. He said, no, don't change it to a brown problem. I'm still a Black man, even though my dialect is a little different. So put me in the right box. Don't take me and
mm.
put me in no other box. See, they put us in so many boxes because we want to be separate, a Black Cuban and a white Cuban. No. Put Cuba in a box, a people of oppression. That's what we've got to speak about. We're letting the oppressor tell our story.
Mm,
How can
mm,
the slave
mm.
owner tell the slave story? I can't get that. How can you put in the book and write about my people more than I know? I should
Mm.
know more about my people than you know. But you're telling me, oh my God, that was painful. How do you know it was painful? Have you felt the pain? Now you're so afraid because now we just didn't wake up. We are awoke that you want to keep my information out
You
of
know
the
what?
books.
You're definitely hitting some very important points. My wife and I was looking at this movie the other day. It was the eighth movie of what's the white guy's name? Can't, he does the guy who wrote Django, right? Tarantino, I think his name is. And the quote was like so incredible. There's a white guy talking in the film, and this is back in like around the 1860s, something like that, right? And in the film, what he says is white people need Black people to be afraid so they can feel safe. I was like, oh,
Mm,
that. And then later on in the film, um, the Black character who was a bounty hunter, he said, Black people need white people to be disarmed so we can feel safe. So this whole thing
mm,
about safety is at the center of it, right? Um, because you're talking about the war cry, right? Um, where and when do our children feel safe? They never feel
mm,
safe because the European society has weaponized our skin. They look at us and they automatically say that's a violent criminal. Now remember, where does this come from? It comes from the transmission of slavery in the form of chattel slavery to the form of political slavery. So right after the 1865, they created the 13th Amendment. that says what? Slavery and involuntary servitude is abolished except in a punishment of a crime. So we come out of chattel slavery, and then we go right into criminal slavery because then they started making all these type of laws. Oh, you're a vagrant. You don't have a place to live. Who's your employee? You don't have a place to stay. All the different things that was part of coming out of slavery, they made those things illegal, and then we became criminalized. So we moved from chattel slavery right into convict leasing, right into the sharecropping system, right into peonage, right into Jim Crow, right into mass incarceration. It's been a straight line from the time that we were kidnapped and the time that we were enslaved and the brutality that we have suffered. So the problem is not just about police killing. The problem is not just about education. The problem is not just about employment. And you said it earlier, and people might have didn't hear what you said earlier. You said the colonized mind. But it's not only the colonized mind, it's the colonized situation we are still living in. Because those so-called founders of this country, and it's not I say right clearly, it's not my country. Why? Because I never consented. You didn't ask me, and I didn't give you an answer. So I never consented. And until we, in fact, demand a plebiscite to say what we want our relationship to be, we will continue to be treated as political children. Because the people have to declare, just auditor, people have to declare what they want. So the 14th Amendment was an invitation to citizenship. You can't superimpose, that's an international human rights violation when you superimpose a national identity on the people. And that's like saying, I kidnap a woman, rape her, have children, and then 10 years later say that she's my wife. She's not my wife. She's my victim.
Absolutely.
We are victims. We are victims of war. We are prisoners of war, and it hasn't been. So when Malcolm talked about human rights, he was saying, let's see what the human rights conventions are saying. Right? How many people know about the Convention of the Child? How many people are insisting that this government, in fact, becomes a signatory to the Convention of a Child? That was back in 1989? China, I think, refused. I think Israel and the United States chooses not to sign it. They say that children don't have any rights. We have to become educated, like Malcolm X said, in terms of human rights. So this is why I'm a reparations activist. I happen to be the co-chair of NCOBRA. NCOBRA is the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. I happen to be the co-chair of their Health Commission, and I happen to be the co-chair of the National Association of Black Social Workers National Relations Committee, which has to do with organizing our people around the education that we need to engage in so that we can live, a happy and a productive and a safe life.
Now, just a question. Two questions, one statement, and that statement is, if we don't educate, we will incarcerate. That's it. If we don't educate our Black boys and Black girls, they will be incarcerated. They don't understand that based upon this transgender that's running rapidly in our society, that the norm man and woman, boy and girl, is being pushed. And where are they being pushed? They're being pushed into incarceration. So the systematic racism of what we don't know about is moving our reality into an unreality and forcing us to accept more norms, different sets of norms to confuse our way of thinking along with everything else. So we better understand what is actually going on so that we can sort of get a handle. And the second thing I want to say is that when we speak about what is happening and reparation in our lives, our children has felt generational trauma. It is generational trauma that has been passed down through our blood system. And we now are seeing the results of it because our children now are faced with so much anger. They didn't just wake up and say, I want to be angry. It was in their blood system. Their mama was angry. Their daddy wasn't there. Their grandmama wasn't there. I mean, years and years and years and years of anger. And now it has become explosive along with other identity, with other things of identity. And they just don't know who they are. And here we are, supposed to be the ones that help them. We're confused. Oh no, what do you have, my brother? Well, oh, New York Cobra? Is that what it's saying?
In Cobra.
Tell us, in Cobra. Tell us that. Tell us what that's about.
The harm is to our genes. This is one of the most important documents that has been produced maybe in the last 10 years. How can I make such a statement? What you talked about a moment ago about this trauma being passed down, first of all, we knew this to be true anyway. We knew there was a reason why they would hang us, castrate us, why they would have a pregnant woman, open her up and have the baby fall out and have everyone witness this so that they can see them stomping the baby on the ground. I mean, what these people have done is so barbaric, it's almost unspeakable. We knew that there was a consequence. That's why they did it in the first place. And we knew that consequence was not only to the people that were there, but it actually will be passed down in our system. But now, for the first time ever, now we have the evidence, the scientific proof to explain how and why that happens. And what this report is the harm report. The harm is to our genes, transgenerational epigenetic inheritance and systematic racism in the United States. This is a report that scientifically explains the very thing that you spoke about. The genes don't change, but how they function gets changed. And when you change the function of a perfectly divine system that the Creator has created for us, when we change that system, then you have maladies, you have things that go wrong, such as indigestion, such as heart failure, such as renal failure. All the different symptoms that we are experiencing is coming from how our system has been torn down one generation after another. So now we have a document that is beginning to lay out what these problems are. So we say, in releasing this report, the harm, this is from Cobra, in releasing this report, the harm is to our genes, and Cobra has 5 outcomes we desire. Inclusion. We want all discussions on health disparities of the Black community to include the fact that this is community. Only in this community has experienced over 400 years of historical trauma in the manner in which it has manifested itself. We want resources. We want resources directed to mitigate the effect of historical trauma, i.e., transgenerational transmission of trauma and transgenerational epigenetic inherited injury. 3, we want research. As much as the research on transgenerational epigenetic inheritance has been on animals, we want specific research done on people in our communities so we can see exactly how it's happening with us. And 4, we want awareness. We want cities, states, and federal government to provide awareness, information on the existence and possible ways that our community can individually and collectively address this reality. And this is probably the biggest one out of the 5. Decolonization of health. Many alternative healing modalities, in particular African and African-centered healing modalities, must be understood, accepted, adopted, funded, and utilized in the effort to heal our communities from the centuries of terror, trauma, and abuse. So what this document does, it starts to touch on these different aspects of transgenerational trauma theory and how.
Now, can we get a copy of that document? Is that document publicized?
Yes, it is.
Could you
Um,
just let our listeners and the engineers know, put that on the screen where we can get a copy of that document? Because that document can start the healing in our communities. Because
yes.
guess what? The church needs to document. The church is the largest assembly that we go to on Sundays. And these pastors, these community activists, these community leaders, we need that document so that we can begin the healing of the problem before we can even think about reparation. Because you know how we are with Black people. They gave us that stimulus money, the $1,200, and we just gave it right back to them. So we need to heal ourselves so we can know that our self-worth is more than $1,200. Our self-worth is going into entrepreneurships, loving ourselves, building our community, and helping our people. So just repeat that again so the engineers could just put that on the site.
Yes, let me find our website. In Cobra reparation. I'm looking on the email right now to get the.
Okay. Because we want to get this information. That's what War Cry is about. Information to move and galvanize you out of your comfortable zone. You've been silent too long. I'm telling you, and money is not the cure to everything. We need your body. We need your voice. The enemy wants you silenced. See, he wants to destroy us just by shutting us down. But that's not the case. See, you can look at TV all you want to. You can sit there and not do anything, but the world is still revolving. And if you
Mm,
don't get to become a part of it, then you're going to lose. And when you
mm,
lose, you're going to not only lose yourself, your families are at risk. The
mm,
Black family is at risk. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's
mm,
about our people and the world. And I'm not excluding our Black and white, our white brothers, our Latino brothers, our Asian brothers. I'm not excluding that. But their problem is not our problem. See, our Jewish brothers and sisters, they gave you a number for the Holocaust. They say 6 million of us was killed. Well, guess what? It was 10 million of us killed before they brought us to these shores of America.
mm.
So do the numbers. Back at you, Dr. O.
Wow. So I put in the chat, the, the chat box. I put in those the fish www.officialincobraonline.org. People can Google that, Google the harm report, and they can get a copy of it. And what we've done, we've created what was called the Dr. Mutulu Shakur Community Health Declaration and Campaign. So, for some of you who may not know, when you hear the word Shakur, more likely than not, you think of Tupac Shakur, his mother Afeni Shakur, and his stepfather Mutulu Shakur. So this is a family. Dr. Mutulu Shakur wanted to arrest heroin addiction in the Bronx, and he created a detox center at Lincoln Hospital. And what he did was to bring in acupuncture to solve the problems of not only heroin addiction, but also he disagreed with methadone as a maintenance. So the drug is not new, but it was new in using it as a maintenance drug, which meant that someone had to come to a clinic to get administered. It's federally controlled. So he said, wait a minute, it must be another way. And the way that he found was a natural way of using acupuncture. And it's what is called the 5 points, the regular 5 points in the ear, that if you press these points, they will create a sense of calm and peace. And also they had some herb tea, and hundreds upon maybe thousands of people were actually treated in the Bronx and Lincoln Hospital. Now, when we do something successful, there's always a pushback. There's always a pushback. So it wasn't too long that they were put out of the Lincoln Hospital. And they said, okay, well, we won't do it at Lincoln Hospital. We'll do it over here. We'll do it ourselves. They condemned the building and they chased them. And eventually they had to create their own organization in Harlem. Nonetheless, this is a man who gave us a solution and gave us the first step in healing ourselves. Now, remember, prior to us being able to go to hospitals, it was my grandmother who put nutmeg on my chest to pull out the congestion. It was my grandmother who taught me to drink sassafras tea. The herb, it says in the Bible that the herbs is your medicine, right? There's a natural,
Yes.
all the pharmaceuticals were another invention on top of the natural invention that God had created. So we had ways of healing ourselves because we didn't have a choice, right? And if you go back and look at the rich history of particularly African people and indigenous people, we had all kind of systems that we did use to heal ourselves. So what Dr. Mutulu Shakur did is he gave us the ability to tap back into those traditions again. So you don't have to use needles, even though you can use needles in the 5 points. You can just use pressure, or you can use seeds. So what Incorpora has done is we've created the Dr. Mutulu Shakur campaign, and that is and I'll send you the declaration that you can have for your references. We made a declaration on his birthday, on his 72nd birthday, declaring that day the Dr. Mutulu Shakur Community Health Day. And every year after that, to celebrate that day as that, the Dr. Mutulu Shakur Community Health Day. But also we've created a campaign. The campaign is to get trained in the 5 points, the Mutulu technique, and to this year have 100 places. So we did it last year, 2022, right? One place in New York City where we actually read the declaration. Just yesterday in Newark, New Jersey, we had our first community gathering that was organized by Lisa Davis, who's the co-chair of the Health Commission. And she organized people in Newark, New Jersey, where we showed the film Dope as Death, that gives a history of acupuncture and how it was used. And then we also used it as number one, because we want 100 places to see the film and talk about our health and see how we can use these techniques. So next year, we want to multiply it times 10. So next year, we want to have 1,000. And then the year after that, we want to have 10,000. Everything times 10. The year after that is 100,000. And then 2026 actually reach 1 million. Why? Because health self-determination is people loving themselves, is a people caring for themselves, is a people using the things that's available to them. So we have to seriously look at the food we eat. We have to look at the exercise in our life. These are called social determinants of health. Individual determinants of health. But we have to look at the larger colonial structure in which we live in and how much stress that we are under. Our people are stressed out in so many different ways. They call it microaggressions. They call it all these different things. But the thing is, the stress is killing us. And you know what? When you deprive a people of the resources that they need to get healthy, you are intentionally committing genocide. And this goes back to you. This goes back to your the title of your show. The war cry. We didn't. This isn't a war that we started. This is a war that was declared against us, and now it's time for us to face the truth. Right? When people don't face the truth, they call that insanity. We are people who are living in insanity because we're not willing to face the truth of what these circumstances are. If you look at the statistics in terms of who dies from heart failures, right? The rates are outrageous. Look at the life history. The life time that we actually, it's always less than the white counterpart. Why is that? Why are our Black women dying at such high rates that now we're talking about the 4th trimester? Why is this? All this are just all the signs of the colonial situation that we are still in, and we have to find a way out of it. And the only way that we can find a way out of it is for us to become, like you said, educated, for us to be organized, and for us to take action. So right now, your listening audience may probably never even heard about this before, but I want to let you know that through a series of international work, there's something called the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. So I had mentioned 2001, the United Nations Conference Against Racism, right? That was 2001. But then there was also the year of people of African descent. I think it was in 2014. Then they created the decade for African people from 2015 to 2024 with 3 principles: recognition, justice, and development, right? Recognition of like this, let's see what's going on and give people the credit for what they do. And also identify those criminals, right? In terms of who are creating these conditions. And justice has to be reparations. And then what the last one is development. How do we see the future for ourselves? Now our young people, they are telling us, and the truth of the matter is they don't believe they're going to live to be 20. And that is the truth. So how do we turn that around? We turn that around by, first of all, having historical information. Oppression tries to do three things. Makes you ahistorical, makes you apolitical, and makes you afuturistic. If I can get a people where they don't understand their history and they don't understand the power they have in their hands to change things right now, and I can help and I can get them into a place where they don't see the future, what will they do? They will commit mass suicide. You go to the Indian reservations, children are committing suicide in packs. And guess what? The rate of suicide in the Black community is increasing. We have never had the rates that we're seeing right currently today. So it's such an urgent matter for us to understand. And the only thing that's going to help us is telling the truth about the colonial status that we still, in fact, occupy as a people.
Now, let me just come in. First of all, I need to say this. This is such a wonderful interaction, and I need to see if you're going to be able to even come on next week for part 2, because this information needs to get out to everybody, not just us. We need to hit all my listeners. You need to share. You need to put on Facebook. You need to do everything you can, because this is valuable information for our livelihood, for us to progress. The Bible tells us that our children are our inheritance. Well, let me tell you something. Your inheritance is being snatched away. It's being snatched away because you are lacking knowledge on how to treat your inheritance. So I need to see, Dr. O, if you can join us back next week, because we got to discuss, or when will you be available? Because the discussion has to continue. This is War Cry, and this is a cry out so our people know what's coming, because if you don't know what's coming, you don't know how to prepare. So you've got to know what's coming. We've always been a people who regress. Oh, we got one mass shooting and we regress. We got a police killing some Black person like George Floyd, and we magnetize that into the streets. But what happened? Where's Black Lives Matter now? Where were they for this young man who died with police brutality up in Memphis? Oh, it wasn't different because it was 5 Blacks and 1 white? Is it always just making sure it's a white police officer? We got to examine ourselves. It's the system that's corrupted. And until we address the system,
my friend calls it the proxy races, right? The proxy
races. Yeah. Now, can you join us back next week? Can you join us back next week?
Yes,
okay. Because we must continue this conversation, because it's one that we need to know. Because guess what? You're being hoodwinked. You're being hoodwinked. And you're being hoodwinked not just by the white man. You're being hoodwinked by the church, by some Black people, by Black politicians that you put in office who just want the money. You're being hoodwinked. You are being hoodwinked. You're not following up on things you should. You're not holding them responsible. You know what you do? You go to the voting thing, check Democrat. You don't even know what these people stand for. You're being hoodwinked. And it's time for us not just to be woke, but to stay awake. And how you going to stay awake? With information that can move you from one place to the next place. And that's what you've got to do. So we want to make sure we bring him back next week, so we can move this conversation into another area, because he's got a lot of information. This is War Cry. War Cry didn't come to make you feel good. War Cry came to make you get upset, to move you into a place to do something for our people. It's not about you. Now, you can hit us up on our Gmail account, War Cry for Our Children. I'm up every morning at 4 o'clock praying, because that's what we're called to do. But when I get up in the morning, I'm going out to do action, period. You can hit us up on our website or back on our warcry.gmail.children and get a t-shirt. I am praying for our children. See, they got to know that somebody's standing in their corner. See, our Jewish brothers and sisters, they let their children know. Some of us, as believers, we let our children know, but we're called to do worldly affairs. So we must let the enemy of the airway know that we're going to stand in the gap. And this is War Cry. I'm going to give the last words to Dr. O. Dr. O, what are you thinking about this program and about what we need to do, the next steps to mobilize? Just in one word, how would you summarize our people up today?
If I can, we have to, the East told us to educate, to agitate, and to organize. That's the only thing that the enemy has done is out-organized us. That's the only thing. They're not smarter than us. They don't have more resources than us. They just out-organized us. We got to organize. And thank you for
organize.
Be here with you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
And if I had to leave our listeners with one word, I want to tell you something. If we don't educate, we're going to incarcerate. And you may think it's our young Black men, but we've sent a lot of Black girls in there, pregnant, having babies, repeating that cycle in jail. It's about our people. It's about our people. Let us go out today and do some acts of kindness. Let us just not pass by the homeless person. Let us at least get them some food to eat instead of walking by saying, you again. Well, you know what? At least it could be you. This is War Cry. If you want to listen to those politically correct stations, then guess what? Tune in somewhere. But I do hope that you stand with us and make this the #1 podcast and radio station in the world. And let's move some of the other garbage out and move truth first. This is War Cry. I love you. 11 o'clock. Dr. O is going to be back with us, and we look forward to seeing you. This is War Cry. Back, engineers, into your hands.
This is War Cry. We're on the wall crying out for our children, our communities, our schools, our churches, our families. This is War Cry. Welcome to our reality. Gun violence. Chicago, Philly, Detroit, New York, Atlanta, just to name a few. Our Black children are dying day by day. This is War Cry. Police brutality. Hands up. Don't move. I can't breathe. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag All Lives Matter to Christ. This is War Cry. Drugs, rape, mass shootings, school violence. This is War Cry. Galvanizing people to pray for our children and to take action. Let's march on Washington. We want prayer back in school. This is War Cry. Cameras, memorials in every corner in our neighborhood. Who died this weekend? Oh no, not Miss Martha's grandson. This is War Cry. He was only 16. His brother died last year. He was only 13. This is War Cry. We the people. We're the elected officials. This is War Cry. We need the church. Where's the church? Only on Sundays. Get to the streets, church. We need you out there. This is War Cry. Girl, be gone. Boy, be gone. Mothers crying. Fathers being locked up. Welcome to our reality. Identity crisis. This is War Cry. Oh, they're trying to remove our history off the textbook. Oh, critical race theory? It makes them feel bad. It's our reality. Fake reality shows. We want the real truth. Stay woke. This is War Cry. HBCUs under attack. This is War Cry. Equal pay for what we do. We want a reparation. This is War Cry. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Wait a minute. Is that somebody else they're burying that looks like us? Only 12. This is War Cry. Oh, let us come together and pray for our young people, pray for our communities, pray for our schools, pray for our churches, pray that the government gives us what we need, a fair opportunity. This is War Cry, home of the land, home of the brave, land of the free. Who's free? Our men are locked up. This is war prayer. Hashtag mothers against gang violence. Hashtag fathers who love their sons. Hashtag what would Jesus do? This is war cry.